Like my target is being the best. My target is giving it my all. My target is making sure not to let down my teammates. Football is way more mental than the average viewer can comprehend. I would call myself so much, I would just fall asleep before the game in my locker. You just want to be the best version of yourself.
Desmond, I am so stoked to have you on the podcast, to have this conversation. I've been really looking forward to this for a long time. But before I jump in with all the fire and curiosity that I have about how you do your life,
yes,
let me just check in. Like, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm really good. Enjoying my time at home now. This is the part of the season when I get a little downtime. So good time to spend with the family and and do other things I like to do. So I'm doing right. I'm in a good space right now. Thanks for asking.
Oh, that's cool. And is that more often than not you're in a good space, even when you're in the rhythm of the season and doing your broadcasting? Do you feel like overall you're in a pretty good place in life, or is it the other way? It's like, look, some days it's hard to get out of bed for me, and I struggle a bit.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think overall, even if I struggle, I feel like I don't struggle long. So even if I don't feel like getting out of bed, like you just mentioned, that doesn't last long. Like, you know what I mean? Like all of us, we have that moment where we'd rather stay in bed for another 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes. But then I think about all sorts of things that may motivate me or inspire me. And then, I get out of bed.
Okay. So I definitely want to understand kind of the drive behind your success. Now, look, I'm gonna pump your tires here for a minute. Okay. Heisman Trophy winner. All right. So that's like the best out of college.
Yeah.
4th overall draft pick for the NFL. Now, to get to the NFL, it's a 0.023% from high school to the pros. You are 4th overall. And it's a 1.6 chance to get into the NFL from college. So 1.6% of all college athletes who are extraordinary get into the NFL, and you're 4th overall. Then you get to the Super Bowl. Not only do you get to the Super Bowl, you are the MVP of the Super Bowl. Okay. And now you're at ESPN College GameDay, which is kind of it's the premier broadcast around college football. So, I mean, with all of those achievements,
yes,
I don't know where you're going to take this question, but how do you think about success?
Wow. I think it's important for you to define success in your own individual way. I really do. I think, especially with today's, what's going on in today's world and the way social media has like really started to influence things. I think it's really important for you to be able to define it for yourself. Now, I can say that now because, I'm accomplished. I've done a lot, and I look at life through a different lens, so to speak. But for the most part, growing up, I had heroes. I had people who I looked up to, and I wanted to be like. I wanted to emulate them. So my success growing up was like, I want to be like this person. I want to be like that person. I think my definition of success started to change. It started to mature, so to speak, once I got to college. So because I understood life a little differently. So I would say you define success by the way you view life. In my view, my lens, my perspective, it always evolved. So my definition of success would always evolve also.
Okay, so when you were young in college, how were you? This is retrospective. You got to go back and try to imagine what you were, thinking about as a college kid. But like, how, were you thinking success was getting to the league? Was it breaking records? Was it being happy? Was it making money? Was it being part of something special? Like, what were you focused on at that point? And then we'll just fast forward to now.
All right, Doc. Well, let me put it to you like this. So I was a little kid growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, who was a big Dallas Cowboys fan.
Okay.
So I go way back with, Tom Landry, Tony Dorsett, Roger Staubach, Tony Hill, Drew Pearson. I mean, I can give you the whole lineup. Ed Too Tall Jones, Harvey Martin. And so Tony Dorsett was my idol. So he went to Pitt. Pitt's not too far from Cleveland. I watched him in college. I watched him with the Cowboys, and I was a running back. So at that point, going to the NFL, being a running back like my idol, Tony Dorsett, was like my, I guess, definition of being successful. Then I got to Michigan. Long story, but I changed positions from running back to wide receiver. Now, you mentioned I won the Heisman. Back then, in the 80s and 90s, I mean, Michigan was known as a team that just ran the football. Like, they called it 3 yards in the cloud of dust. So for me to even be considered for the Heisman was like not even on my radar. But what I did learn when I was at Michigan, Doc, was that you had to control the controllables. Like, you could only control what you control. This came to me in not the best way, because it happened to a good friend of mine who was a teammate. He was I think he was a three-time All-American defensive back. His name was Trip Wellborn. So Trip was the best player on our team, Trip Wellborn. And, he was a defensive back, and he also returned punts. And so Trip was returning a punt, and he got tackled on the far sideline. And, he stayed on the ground. Our trainers ran to the far sideline to help him out, and he came back. They brought him over, and we thought nothing of it. The next thing I know, Doc, is a few days later, I'm in the hospital visiting Trip, who had an ACL. He tore his ACL. Now, this is probably 89, 90. Back then, that was like almost career threatening for a football player to tear your ACL. I just remember feeling sick to my stomach, like looking at my guy in this hospital bed. It was like a routine play. No one thought anything of it. And here he is, the best player in the best player on Michigan's team, one of the best in the country. And he couldn't control everything that happened on that field that day. And so it really opened my eyes that you have to control the controllables, which is something I was taught by my mentor at the time, a guy named Greg Harden. And so it gave me just a different perspective of life. Like, I knew that I can control my academics. I can control going to class. I can control doing my papers, turning my assignments in on time. I could control all that. But as talented as, Trip was, and he was like one of the greats, he still couldn't control everything that happened on that field. So my definition of success was, of course, I would love to play in the NFL, but it wasn't like the primary goal at that time. It was more like, okay, I want to get my degree. I want to graduate from Michigan, and I want to set myself up. So life after, college, I will be able to be, hopefully gainfully employed.
Okay, so control what you can control.
Yeah.
It's such an easy idea.
Yep.
Hard to execute against. And at some level, it's hard to know at a first pass for some, like, what is actually in my control. And there's two ways that folks go about this. They go about it like, listen, there's only a couple of things that I can control. I can control my thoughts, the ones I'm aware of.
Right.
I can control my responses, my behaviors, in other words. I can control my attitude. So there's only a handful of things that I can really control. And some people go, no, you're not thinking about it right. You can control thousands of things. What you say to yourself, what you say to other people, how you sit, how you stand, how you hold yourself, whether you smile, whether you eat an apple or an apple pie. Like, they can all get reduced down to a handful of buckets.
Yeah.
But it sounds like what you did is you niched down to say, right, I can control my effort at school.
Right.
And so I'm gonna focus on that. I can control maybe my fitness. So maybe I don't get hurt again. I don't get hurt like my teammate.
Right.
So tell me, did you niche way down, or did you just kind of keep it more conceptual?
I guess for me, especially at that point, I was relatively young. I was probably about 19. I think I kept it relatively conceptual, just doing the things that my peers didn't do. And you mentioned about like trying to put myself in the best position possible, maybe not to get injured. And you just really can't control injuries, but you can control your fitness. You can control your sleep habits. You can control your nutrition, your dietary intake. And those things were the things I really started to focus on too. I'll give you a perfect example. So I was a sprinter coming out of high school. Like I ran the 100, I ran the 200, I ran the 4x1. I hated distance running with a passion. But at Michigan, every single position had a test, which was called the 1.5 mile run. And based on your position, you had to run a 1.5 mile under a certain number. And so I hated distance. I didn't see what the purpose was. And I rebelled against it. And, you had to get up and be part of the morning crew if you failed the test. So what I did, Doc, when I had this change in my mental approach, was I started to not only work out with our strength and conditioning staff because you had to, but then after that was over, I would go back to my apartment and I would engage in cross training before it was called cross training. I would jump rope for 10 minutes. And so we're talking late 80s, early 90s. We had cassettes, right? So we listened to music on a cassette. And I would tape my favorite 3 songs, back to back on the cassette player. And I knew each song was about 3.5 minutes. So I knew that I would be jumping rope for like 10 minutes straight.
10 minutes. There you go. Mm-hmm.
So that was my thing. I would hit the speed bag. And
I still do that now.
Do you really?
That's how I do jump roping. Like I don't want to look at a clock.
No,
I just want to vibe to a couple songs.
Exactly.
I'm at like 3 minutes to be clear. One song. Okay. but that's my tactic.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's good.
You're not at 3 songs anymore now.
It works. No, I can get up to 3 songs. I had
okay.
I can get up to 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would do that. I'm a huge boxing fan. So jump rope, boxers, they jump rope religiously, but they also do road work. So I started to commit myself to running a mile, every evening. And then I got up to 1.5 miles, Doc. And then I got up to 2 miles. And I was like, okay, this is good. And I also hit the speed bag for hand-eye coordination. And so when it came to the time to take this 1.5 mile test, like I crushed it. Like because my whole perspective had changed. My whole mental approach had changed. But it goes back to that: control the controllables, do the things that you can do, and then just let the chips fall where they may. So, I wasn't going out. I wasn't going out as much. I didn't drink. I made sure that my diet was on point and things of that nature. And so it put myself in the best position, not only to to try to avoid injury, but to also be not the best football player, but the best athlete on the field every time I took the field. And that was my approach that I learned from my guy, Greg Harden.
Okay. All right. So let me get, I love where you're going because you're creating a formula for you, right? Which is you had some heroes, you had some people that you would say that looks like a good life. You didn't know them. You didn't know if they're happy or not,
right?
But it was what they were doing was inspiring to you.
Correct.
And then you had a moment and you were working hard because you were trying to get to the next level, whatever. And then you had a moment where you saw somebody's dream who was highly talented be sidelined.
Right.
And you said, okay, look, that scared me. Okay, so what am I going to do about that? I'm going to niche down to I'm going to be great with the things that I can control because getting injured is out of my control. So I'm going to get the inputs right. And then what you did is you said, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Which means that somehow in you have high trust. And so you're able to trust that if I do my inputs, I will trust that the outputs will be what they will be. What was it like growing up? Did you have high trust of others? Did you say, no, people are not right? And did you have low trust? Like, tell me about the early framing of trust. Because this is a big one for, I think, so many of us.
Yes.
My water table of trust is like moderate.
Really? Okay. I would say that I think that trust with a lot of other things. It goes up and down based on our experiences. So early on, I had a lot of trust in my friends. Like I trusted my friends, trusting for the most part adults that they wanted the best for us as kids. I had trust in my coaches. So there was just a lot of I wouldn't necessarily say blind trust, but that childhood trust, the trust that you have as a kid, as an adolescent too. So I had a lot of trust, but the people, they didn't betray my trust, and now that I think about it, I was happy that I trusted, especially my coaches, the way that I did, because they coached us hard. Like I came up, Doc, in an era where it was a term called tough love. So, they were disciplinarians. We're talking about an era when the neighbors would check you if you did something wrong, as if they were like a relative. So there was always this trust, and the parents, your parents, or at least my parents, they wouldn't like second guess it. They'd be like, okay, what did you do wrong? What, you know what I mean? Because they had the trust that these people had, the best interest of your children and all the kids in the community. So that was then. I'm way less trustful now as an adult than I was as a child. So
yeah, that's okay. That's cool though, that you had this feeling as a youngster that the community is creating safety. They're challenging me, but there's a safety amongst the tribe.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. That probably gave you some of that comfort with, like, if I get the inputs, I can't control the outputs, but I'm going to trust that this is the right process. Right. And so when I hear you talking, it sounds like success was getting to the next level and performing well at the current level.
Right.
There's the goals in there, but the process for your success at that time was summarized by master or control the controllables.
Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like if we think about motivation in kind of like in four different variables, but two primaries, there's drive and rewards. It sounds like you were internally driven.
100%.
Like you did not need to have an uncle or a dad or a coach or a mom or a sister say, "Hey, Desmond, get up. It's time." You would say, no. I set my alarm. I get up. I am internally driven. Does that sound right?
100% accurate.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And because there's a folklore that the best of the best of the best are internally driven, and people don't really want to believe that that's the case. But you're an N of one at least that says, no. You did not have to tell me. I was driving the program. The second is on the reward side. There's intrinsic rewards and extrinsic. So the intrinsic rewards is, I just love how it feels to figure shit out. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I want to figure out this next thing, if I want to unlock something, I got to do road work and rope work, and I've got to be on. So I love figuring out how this tapestry comes together. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, that's a part of it. That's a part of the equation. It's definitely, it's a big equation, but that's a significant part of it.
Because the other side is the extrinsic rewards. No, I'm doing this so I get paid. I get recognized. Mm-hmm. And it's not an all or nothing.
Right.
Right. I believe, this is a belief, not a theory here. I believe that we can love the way it feels to unlock and also love the externals that come with it.
Right.
Or want them, if you will. So, that to me is, I think, something really important. So where was if you had an equalizer on the rewards, the love of unlocking or the love of getting paid? So if you had an equalizer and a 10 out of 10 on both of them is like, I'm full tilt on both, where would you put your dials?
Well, intrinsic would be the higher dial of the two, because it's more, I think those who are worried about the getting paid, they're more results oriented. I mean, that's their target, and that was never really my target. Like, my target is being the best. My target is giving it my all. My target is making sure not to let down my teammates. Like, that was what motivated me, what my drive was about. It wasn't, and then I knew that if I did that, then not only would I, set myself up to be the best player I can be, but then I would rub off on my teammates, and it would start to be something that they would do also, that they would follow. You can lead in a great way like that if you're out there being the example that you want others to be. And so that was what really drove me, so to speak.
Okay, so let me unpack this one more layer. Is that because you said it two different ways? I was driven to be the best, and then I heard you say I was driven to be my best.
Yeah.
So those are different, right? And
right. If I could probably, like Greg, when I was in Michigan, I think Greg Harden put it best. He said, "You want to be the best version of yourself." So that's the simplest way I can put it for anybody who's listening or watching this podcast. You just want to be the best version of yourself. That's what you should strive for. And that's what I found out, and I thought was a relatively early age, which was probably about 18 or 19 when I was at Michigan. And then that's what drove me from that point forward.
I think that is so rare, a fundamental commitment, not just like a word or a phrase I throw around, but a fundamental commitment. And why that word matters or that phrase matters, fundamental commitment, because it then fundamentally shapes your choices, your micro choices. But a fundamental commitment to be my best is so rare. It is so special that those folks that make that fundamental commitment end up being the best. And so would you agree with that? Or would you say, because you and I both know freaks, they roll out of bed half hungover or sleep, and they jump 42 inches and they're a freak in the air. And like, we know those freaks. Were you a freak or
no?
Were you earned your speed?
I was talented. I had my gifts, but I worked extremely hard. And like I said, I committed myself to my craft. But the flip side, you're talking about those freaks. I knew guys, I played with guys who were just physical freaks. Like they were just incredibly gifted. And they, it's not like they, did anything extraordinary off the field to make them, extraordinary on the field, just who they were. I used to look at guys and say, man, just imagine like if you stopped drinking, what you would be able to do on the field. Or if you stopped hanging out, late at night and got the proper amount of rest, just imagine, how you would take off. I mean, you're incredibly gifted, talented, blah, 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 and you're putting up good numbers, but you can put up better numbers. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I've played with some physical freaks and was like, whoa. And then, but like you said, they roll out of bed and can go out there and have like a pretty significant performance.
It's not sustainable though. And that's why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
Is because you've sustained excellence over 20 some years, like 30 years of not just like you were good in high school, good in college, you got to the Super Bowl and got a ring. You were him as the guy's right. Okay. So the sustaining, as I'm understanding it, and it feels like I want to make sure that you and I are not just agreeing to have a nice conversation, but when it comes up that you chin check it, like, no. Okay. So what it feels like is that the sustaining is that you invested in the process. That process had a lot to do with your mental game, the way that you were thinking about being great, as equally or even maybe more on technical skills and physical skills. Now hold on for a minute. You're 5'10".
Right.
That would be considered small for a wide receiver, punt returner.
Correct.
In my
especially profession. Exactly.
In your role, that's small,
my former
right?
Profession, yeah.
In your former profession, yeah. Now it's quite average.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're the same height. I understand exactly what it feels like to be in that body or a 5'10" body. Okay. So, all right. So is that when you think about the mental part of the game, the technical part of the game, and the physical part of the game, how do you allocate a percentage to the value for each one of those?
I know that, especially football is way more mental than the average viewer can comprehend. It is way more mental because there are a lot of people with physical ability, right? And what starts to separate people is the mental approach, the things we talked about earlier about the way you take care of your body, the way you take care of your mind, the way you approach it, and what's your motivation. I mean, that's why so many people are just blown away by a person like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant. I mean, even like a Derek Jeter or Tom Brady, because like Tom Brady, you look at those three boxes, he's not gifted physically. He wasn't going to blow you away with his arm strength or anything like that. But where he started to separate himself from the most gifted of athletes was his mental approach. Kobe was gifted, but everyone knows Kobe, he worked his ass off to sharpen his sword. That Mamba mentality would never bring about a dull sword. So that's what started to separate him from his peers. So I believe the mental aspect of it does not get enough attention or enough credit for just how important it is.
When you think of the mental skills to be great, and let me just kind of list a few and then talk about, which ones you resonate with.
Okay.
The ability to be calm, to have that right intensity with a smoothness. Okay, so that's one. Like that's an ability that we can train.
Okay.
The ability to be confident, which is this internal calculus, which is like, okay, I see the challenge ahead of me. I think I can get that done now.
Right.
I map the challenge against my internal skills, and that equation comes up favorable. Like I like it. I like the challenge. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So that's what a confident person is. Not arrogant,
right?
Not bombastic, but like I'm good at the internal calculus.
Right.
Let's go. Okay. All right. And then deep focus, to be able to stay in it when it's agitating and hard or overwhelming. That's a skill.
Yep.
Mental imagery, seeing it before it happens, playing the most beautiful movie you could imagine in your mind.
Yep.
Being aware, having a sense of awareness of how things are working so that you can refocus your mind. So those are just a handful of them.
Yes.
When you hear those, being calm, being confident, mental imagery, high awareness, deep focus, letting go of mistakes. I didn't talk about that one. Which ones do you go, yeah, I was pretty good at that one. I worked my ass off at it too, though.
Well, the one that the first one, being calm, I had a great story for that one I'll share with you. Because I had to learn how to be calm because I would be so hyped up that I had to learn that. And in the process of learning that, though, Doc, I also learned mental imagery. So I'm big on visualization. I'm huge on visualization. I want to play the game in my head before I actually play the game on the field. And that and meditation helped me with that. So meditation, mental imagery, and which ultimately left to me being calm. That ultimately led to that space, so to speak. So anyway, but when I was in college, Doc, man, I would sit in my room and I would like look at my playbook. And the reason you look at plays is, to me, it should be because you visualize yourself on the field executing these plays. At the same time, you should visualize the defense trying to stop you from executing these plays. So I was big on that. And I still do that to this day, even with College GameDay. Like I may not know what the other guys are going to say, but I know what the topics are. And I know what, the pros and cons are. So I'm having those conversations in my head before I ever get to the desk. So I'm huge on that. I think it helps with you being calm in certain situations. I was in Super Bowl 31, Doc, and that's just an experience like no other. I mean, it just is. Like the Super Bowl is the top of the mountain in football. And so one of the first plays, I had a punt return against the New England Patriots. I had a really nice return, and I got tackled on the Patriots sideline. And it was just like an outer body experience. I mean, they were talking shit to me. I was returning the compliments and the expletives, and I got back on my sideline because my guys, like my players, they literally had to come and pull me off of their sideline and bring me back to the Packers sideline. And so I don't get headaches, I don't get migraines, I just don't. I had like this throbbing pain in my head, felt like a pulse, and I had to immediately go see the trainer. And then he gave me some techniques to calm myself down to be able to go out there and perform the way that I did the rest of that evening. But you talked about being calm. Up until that point, I was a type of player, Doc, that I could sit in my locker before a game, especially when I was at Michigan. I would calm myself so much, I would just fall asleep before the game in my locker, like pregame. That's how calm I was before games.
Desmond, you're dropping like the per minute number of gems that you're dropping is almost too much for me. So I guess I am officially turned into some kind of nerd where I get excited about like, oh, there it is. Yes. But so you wouldn't necessarily know this, but I got to share a Super Bowl as well. I didn't wear a helmet. I was on the sidelines working as a sports psych in 48 and 49.
Okay.
So we won one in dramatic fashion, and then we lost one in dramatic fashion. And so did you approach the games, the Super Bowl, as the biggest game of your life, or did you approach it as just another game?
It's hard to approach it as just another game because of everything, all the pageantry surrounding it. I mean, it's just, it isn't just another game. But ultimately, when you get in the locker room, you're done with the warm-ups, and now you're about to go out there and play this game. You get through this grandiose introduction and all of that. You have to be able to, calm yourself down, to put yourself in the space where this is going to be like the other games we played. Normally, though, to be honest with you, that happens after maybe the first series on offense or the first series on defense or the first, special teams play. That's when you really start to calm down, you settle in, and then you go about your business. But for a Super Bowl, there's just way too much surrounding it to just honestly go out there and say, okay, yeah, it's just like another game. We go out there and we try to execute. It's like, no, but eventually you get tackled a couple of times, you make a couple of tackles, you get into the flow of the game. Then that's when you're like, okay, now we're ready to play this game just like we play any and every other game.
So what I hear you say there is like, I needed evidence. I needed some real contact, some evidence, some time under tension to know if I could say I can do this. And hearing all of your preparation to be almost fall asleep pregame, to be so calm. I want to ask you how you did that, to use mental imagery. I totally hear what you're saying.
Yes.
And I want to share you what we did in 48. Coach Carroll, the coaching staff, myself included, we approached preseason game number one as if it was the most important game of the season, which is not, that's a rare approach. Then game number 3, then game number 6, and game number 8, as if it's a championship opportunity. And we'd use that phrase all the time. It's another championship opportunity. Then when playoff game number 1 came, it was another championship opportunity. When the Super Bowl came around, it was another championship opportunity. So we just didn't have a philosophy like, hey, this is just like every other game, or it's the biggest show on earth. We, for the entire season, including preseason practices, this is the most important practice that you get. Okay. It's the only one we have. It's today. And so for the entire year, we're preparing all of us to play one rep at a time with high intensity, so that when the Super Bowl hoopla, the big circus that it is, all the media that floods, as you well know. And if you look how we started the game, we came out flying. Do you remember 48?
Who'd you play?
Super Bowl 48? No, this was us Seahawks against the Broncos.
Oh, against the Broncos, okay. Yeah.
Against the Broncos.
Yeah.
And so it was the first play of the game that unfolded and told the whole story. Okay. That the snap went over, so they had the ball to start. The snap went over Peyton Manning's head.
Yeah.
And our D scrambled, and we got a safety. Yeah. And it just started the whole thing. Yep. I think technically Peyton got a fumble on that, but it was a really funky snap.
Right.
So my point is that you can go at it however you want. It's the biggest show on earth and I'm going to prepare or you can say it's just another game, but you have to practice it. Okay. Not to get too carried away with some war stories or some fun stories you and I had
yes, sir.
In the Super Bowl. But what was your practice in the locker to be that calm? What would you do?
Whew, man, so I would since I already had the mental images, the mental imagery in my head where I played the game the night before. Well, I played during the week, but definitely the night before the game. And what I would do is I would like meditate and I would think about people in my life, circumstances in my life, anything that would inspire me outside of just the game. Because mentally I'm already ready for the game. I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would think about things that are like that are internal sources of motivation. But in a calm way, in a very calm way. And then I could just like relax my body, relax my mind, and fall asleep before some of the biggest games that we had at the big house. And it used to surprise some of my coaches and my teammates, especially the guys whose locker was right next to mine.
Like how does Desmond do it? Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It sounds like you would do some breathing. You would take your mind into places that were help you be more of a full human.
Right.
Things that you're grateful for, things that would ground you.
Yes.
Be present.
And breathing is important too. I'm glad you mentioned that. Breathing is very important. Yeah.
When I was with the Seahawks, if you were to walk through the locker room pregame, you'd see, I don't know, I'll be generous, like 40%, 35%, something like that, of the athletes with a towel over their head.
Okay.
And that was like the sign that we developed, like, hey, I'm doing my thing.
Right.
And so, like I'm doing my imagery, I'm doing my breathing, I'm meditating, I'm just going to and so the towel over the head was like a symbol, like, like, hey, give me my space.
Right.
And so we were normalizing mental skills training in that way. And it was really cool. Yeah. It was a nice little kind of moment for the crew. But okay, so when it comes to confidence, it sounds like what you were doing for confidence, you did a ton of preparation. You would play the movie out the way that you would want to see it tomorrow or later, in the week if you're doing it on a Wednesday for a Sunday's game.
Right.
And could you see and feel when you're doing the imagery, or was it just seeing?
When you say feel, like, it's not like I felt like I was, well, I tried not to get tackled. So,
I see. So,
with my images, I was very successful and it felt good.
Okay. So you had feeling. Okay, good. So could you hear it?
Yeah. It was, I could feel it. I could hear it. I would put myself there, like I was there. And so to me, I would make it as real as possible. And I would hear a crowd. You can hear a crowd too. So it was as real as possible. Like I said, I would try to play the game. It's play by play. I'm looking at these plays, imagining these plays, and I'm executing these plays, one by one, but successfully.
Were you in your helmet or were you watching from like a drone's perspective?
I was in my helmet. Yeah, okay. I was in my helmet because I always see like the defender across from me for the most part. Now, sometimes if I'm doing something like special teams wise, I would be in my helmet because the one of the most important aspects for a punt returner is for him to be able to see the ball off the toe or the foot of the punter, or as a kick returner, see it off the toe or the foot of the kicker, and be able to get to determine the direction of the punt. I was the type of guy who I would see it leave his foot, and then once I tracked the flight of the ball, I would look down to see who's closest to me. Is it the gunner to my left, the gunner to my right? Which guy? Is it the guy coming down the middle? So then it gave me a gauge of how much time I would have before that ball would fall into my arms until someone would be close enough to hit me. So that's how I would gauge it.
So I want to set this up for the listener, just how heavy this is. Ball's in the air.
Yes.
You've got 8, 240, 6'4" alpha males as fast as you can imagine.
Yes.
As violently aggressive as you can imagine.
Yeah.
That are hoping that you don't see them.
Correct.
So that they can tackle you in an aggressively
yes.
violent way.
Yeah.
And so the amount of courage and the poise to wait for that ball to drop when you've got 3 steps away from you, somebody running full speed.
Right.
It's pretty incredible what you've done. So, and you're 5'10".
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you're in that way. So
yes.
Would you, when the ball's in the air, you'd pick it off the toe.
Yeah.
You'd look in the air.
Right.
And then would you come back down and look where your team?
Yeah, exactly. So
where the gunners and the athletes are coming.
Right.
And then
absolutely.
would you go back to the ball? Like, how would you do that?
Yeah. So I would, once it left his foot, I tracked the flight of the ball. I would go in that direction, and then I would look down. I always want to point out the gunners to see where they were on the field. I would look back up, and if it's like one of those guys who had like great hang time, then I would take a second look down just to see if they're closer, because these guys, they want to get a kill shot on you. You know what I mean? They want to get that clean kill shot, and then I would look up. What I did, Doc, to be able to bring this skill set to life was I would do it in practice. So I would have like an assistant coach stand somewhere in between me and the punter, maybe about 20 yards from me. And then when the ball's in the air, I would have him put up his hand and put up a number. And I would have to call out that number. And I would look up, and then he would do it again. And I would call out that number. So that was a drill that I did just so I would become more and more comfortable actually doing it in the game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, practice the way you want to play. So you take practice seriously.
It's all about the process, Doc.
It's all about the process.
Yes. The process, the fundamentals, the principles, but yes, sir.
Okay. So a mutual colleague of ours put us together when I was talking about, who are some of the greats that he's connected with. And when he mentioned your name, he's the CEO of Mack Weldon, for the listener. Mack Weldon is a company I'm really interested in. Yeah. Like it's a clothing line that they've been around, and they've just got this smooth style.
Right.
I don't know another way to say it.
Yeah.
And when we talk, he's so fundamentally interested in where confidence comes from.
Mm-hmm. And
it feels like their brand cares about their way to help people feel confident. And so, like, what is your take on specifically confidence?
I think it all stems from the work ethic when it comes to anything that I do. I think the work ethic, the preparation, paying attention to the finer details. I think that's where, for me, the confidence comes from. When you know you've put in the work and you know that you left no stone unturned, then I think it helps you go out there and execute with the utmost confidence. And that's just, and the beauty, like you said, we were connected by Brian, and it's just a pleasure to meet Brian, and we can talk about the Mack Weldon brand because I love their attire. But the beauty of what we do, Doc, and you've been in NFL, is that we do come across different people from all walks of life who've been extremely successful. And some of the, things that they have in common is the confidence. And, when I speak to different people, it normally comes from their preparation, no matter what field or what discipline they're in, what field of work they're in. The preparation is what starts to fuel their confidence. And then it becomes, it's like a snowball effect, because then the more success you have, the more confidence you start to gain, and you start to believe in that process that gave you the confidence. So it's a beautiful thing to watch unfold. It really is.
One of their first principles,
yes,
and I just want to see if you vibe with it, which is believe that knowing is more important than showing, which is a really interesting first principle for a clothing company. And so do you vibe with that? Believe that knowing
yes
is more important than showing.
100%. It's the thing that they say, if you know, you know. I agree with
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
wholeheartedly. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
know, you know. So I believe that. Yeah. Not
Because
Go
there's
ahead.
a lot of sayings in the locker room, which is like, I don't know. I don't vibe with this at all, but maybe you will, which is look good, feel good, play good.
Right. Right.
And like, I hear that sequence and I go, no way. No way am I going to let playing good be a factor of looking good.
Right.
And so, what like that's so believe that knowing is more important than showing is like this completely opposite of look good, feel good, play good.
Well, I think from a mental standpoint, it's all about how you feel mentally. So if guys feel that they look good, then that puts you in the right space for that moment to go out there and do what you need to do, to go out there and execute it. I mean, we had one of the greatest players to ever play the sport of football. Deion Sanders is one of the guys who really coined that whole phrase, so to speak. You look
Yeah, right.
good, you feel good, you play good. Well, there's one thing that's true in that whole phrase is that if you feel good, you should play good. And that's the most important thing. Now, how you get to the feel good part is on you. For Dion, it was like,
Hey,
well,
we
I'm looking good. So if I look good, and
let's
guess what? Now I feel good. And everybody knows if I feel good, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play fantastic. Like I'm going to I'm going to go out there and handle my business. So,
yeah,
but you got to
yeah.
get to the what's going to make you feel good. And it can't be something it has to be true. You know what I mean? It has to be legitimate. And I mean, Dion's a guy who
Yes.
backed it up.
Oh yeah. I mean, even just talking about Dion, you got amplified. He's something else. So, but
Yeah.
I love what you just did. You took the second two, feel good,
Right.
and then there's a direct link to play good.
Right.
And so part of the inner game is knowing how to use all of your inputs to feel good. And then I would even add one more level. Like for me, I've showed up on stages or whatever, sick, tired, and I can still get to play good.
Right.
But there's some sort of thing. Have you had those games where you're like under the weather, flu, cold game, those types of things where you still
Absolutely.
play well?
Oh yeah.
But I love what you just did. Feel good to play good. And then maybe, who cares? In my mind, you just might look good. But I'm
Yeah.
not trying to look good to get
Right.
to feel good. Anyways, I think
Right.
it's thrown around so often. The strength coach at the Seahawks, they used to do this, what I thought was a silly practice, but the guys loved it. They called it TV arms. I think it was it Saturday night? Saturday morning, they would do TV arms like biceps and triceps, which is not functional in any way. And they're just kind of TV arms.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny. All right. Listen, I love this conversation. I have a felt sense, to use the feeling word, that you live a vibrant life, that you bring a zest and a spark into all rooms and conversations you go to. And I don't want to make that assumption without you saying, yeah, I agree. Or like, no, I'm more tired than you might imagine.
No, I think I'm a pretty high energy guy for the most part. I always tell my wife that I have a full tank. So no matter where we go, I have a full tank. It can be, it can be a party, it can be an event. I have a full tank, and that's the Desmond you're going to see. Now, maybe 2.5, 3 hours later, that tank may be damn near empty, and then you're gonna get a different Desmond. It's not going to be the full tank Desmond. So for the most part, when I walk into a room, I'm very optimistic. I'm very happy. I'm jovial. I'm very engaging. I'm very attentive, and so that's me in general. I've always been that way.
So let me just ask about married life. How long have you been married?
It's been over 20 years now. Yeah.
Okay. And relationships are hard. In the US,
Yeah.
50%
Right.
plus don't figure it out, don't make it, I should say. And then some of those that actually do stay are not really happy.
Right.
The ball and chain and like, do you get a hall pass? And like that's not the kind of relationship I want to be in.
Right.
So when you think about sustaining excellence in your life and you think about your life partner, how do you how do you think about the importance of the relationship? And then what do you do to help create and co-create a great relationship?
Yeah, that's a very very good question, and it's been 21 years just to be exact. And I think that it's a lot of trial and error. You're growing together, you're developing together, you're maturing together. She's maturing, I'm maturing. You know what I mean? So we're still at the same time trying to figure out life. And
Yeah.
you have to have a partner that you can communicate with, and that you have to be a great listener, and your partner has to be a great listener too. You have to be willing to listen to the other person, and yeah, and then you got to be able to have some fun. Like, they have to be your friend too. You have to be able to like go places with your partner and enjoy different settings, different environments, different activities with your partner. And you have to be willing to do it too. Like, it can be something that you're not a big fan of, but your partner is, and you have to be willing to like, okay, go out there and, enjoy it to the best of your ability, and not fake it. Because if you fake it, then your partner's going to know, and that's going to be an issue. That's going to be a problem. So you go out there, you try to enjoy even moments that you may not be too keen on, as much as you can for your partner. But it's work, but I think it could be extremely rewarding.
I love what you're saying because I think that we talk about, I think you're probably interested in, I definitely am. And when we talk about high performance, I feel like somehow the most significant relationship in our lives gets left out of that equation, as if, Desmond, you did it all by yourself, when actually you had a life partner that was like right there, stride by stride. Yeah, obviously not in high school and college.
Right,
I don't know
yeah.
if you guys were together in the pros or not, but like certainly the transition to the success you're having now.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think both of us maybe can. I've been married a long time as well,
Okay.
and like I think I'm on like 30 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah. So like I just want to raise that emblem and say invest, like really invest in that relationship.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said 21 years. I'm just looking at your picture. That was behind you. Is that
Oh
that was
yeah,
your
that
number,
guy.
right?
That guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that was your
Yeah.
Michigan number, 21.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you pick it? Is there any meaning to the number 21 for you?
So in high school, I was number 27. So,
Mhm.
obviously, you want to try to continue the same, continue the tradition of wearing the same number that you wore in high school. You want to wear it in college. But when I went to college, there was an upperclassman who wore number 27, and so I was like, okay, well, I mean, from a distance, 21 could possibly look like 27, so I went with 21.
If you've got bad eyesight, yes. Oh my
I
God.
would say, if I run fast enough, I mean, I don't know, so
Oh God,
so I picked
that is so
21.
good. Oh God, you never told that story out loud, did you? That is
Oh
great.
no,
Oh,
I
that
don't
is
think
so
so.
funny.
I don't think
That
so. So
that is really funny. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you had a great TED Talk. Let's round third base here. Like you had a great TED Talk,
thank you. Thank you very
and
much.
yeah, and you talked about the 5 keys to success.
Right.
All right, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you remember them? Is it well metabolized, or was this a script you read? Because I loved it.
No. I think,
Okay.
for me, things evolve. So I think that what I felt then, and I believe when I gave the TED talk, it should have been right before COVID. So almost like maybe
Mhm.
4 years ago. Yeah, 4 or
Mhm.
5 years ago. And since COVID, a lot of things have changed. But I think my experience has always influenced what's important to me at that time. So those
Cool.
5 keys, I think the foundation is still the same, but you may get to like maybe key number 4, number 5, it may change a little bit. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah. So give me one that's really important to you in your life.
Being humble, humility. Humility is
Mhm.
very important.
And when you think about humility, how do you practice it?
I practice humility by I'm always by being the person who puts his ego to the side and just listens to other people and not try to be the focal point no matter where I am. So I'm always trying to, I guess, suck in my ego, so to speak, or just my, presence, so to speak, and listen to other people, let them be the focal point. And I think once you do that, you can see how much more engaging people are to you because it's almost like you allow yourself to be somewhat vulnerable.
I think we could stop on that. I think the world needs that. We are trying to get out. People are scared and anxious.
Yes.
And when we're in that state, because there's a lot of change happening in the world. There's some, like
True.
in the United States, we got some real challenges.
That's right.
Yep. And we're kind of pulling apart at the seams, like it feels like there's an unzippering and globally we got some real problems.
Absolutely.
And so yes, humility would be a really nice thing, to be vulnerable, to listen, to not try to just get your point across or be seen, but to actually listen and feel like, I feel like that's I don't want to cloud it with for others right now.
Okay.
But I think that if we just kind of hit that one and just let it simmer and maybe challenge the listener, like, how could you practice?
Right.
We're listening to one of the greats in sport, and he's saying, be humble.
Yes, sir.
And then together we're saying, practice humility today.
That's right.
And then give yourself maybe a score at the end of the day, and then practice it tomorrow and give yourself a score. Like, how well was I vulnerable in listening? That would be a cool practice.
I like that. Man. I like that a lot, Doc.
Yeah. Yes, all right. Good stuff. So let me ask you this. How did you get involved with Mack Weldon? What attracted you to them?
Yeah, so they were brought to my attention by an investment firm called RX3 that invested in the company, and they were telling me about the clothing and telling me about Brian, and
the CEO.
The CEO Brian, and the mission. And so I said, well, excuse me. I said I would love to try the apparel, the clothing out, and they sent me some clothes, and man. It's really funny, like sometimes how, I always heard, like, if you buy a car, then you start to see that car everywhere. Like, I always heard that, right? So it's kind of same thing with like clothing sometimes. So I got the Mack Weldon underwear. And let me say, that's where we start, the underwear.
So what's funny? It's the same for me. Like when I put on their underwear, I was like, oh, they did it differently. Right. And it sounds weird to two men talking about wearing underwear, but like,
but they did it right.
They did it right. They did it right. I know. And then I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, let me put these pants on. I was like, oh, they fit right.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So we had the same experience. And then, I got like the joggers, I got the hoodie, and it's so comfortable. Like, you look and feel sharp in their clothes. And we talked about look good, feel good earlier, but it helps you feel like put together. Like, I love wearing, their clothes when I travel. I wish, listen, Doc, if I wasn't married, I would really, really try to push Brian to let me model their underwear. Now, the wifey's not going to let that happen. I've modeled their shirts before. I was taking some.
You have?
Yeah. The shirts, the joggers, some real cool pictures. But my thing is, it all started with the underwear. So
that's so good.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you're going to go there, but okay.
Yeah. So, but I can't get the green light on that one. But anyway, it's just innovative fabrics, really soft, not too techy, very functional. Very wearable and breathable too. Doc, I live in Miami. So, certain things on me can really feel suffocating. I do not have that problem with Mack Weldon. And obviously I travel a lot with GameDay. So no matter what environment, what climate I'm in, it's always very comfortable and very wearable and very versatile too. We're talking about a comfort that's unmatched.
Dude, I love it. And like, all that being said, couple quick hits for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just give you a thought. I'll give you a phrase, and then you answer it in one word or two words or something like that.
Okay.
It all comes down to
Preparation.
living the good life is marked by
I want to say joy and happiness
pressure comes from
within.
my vision is
Clear.
oh yeah. Who tells you no?
Me.
I like it, Kalunda. All right, I appreciate you, Desmond. This is awesome. Thank you for sharing your approach to sustained excellence, to do it with your unique flair and joy, and to bring the smile and the happiness and all that in there. Like I feel like I see you and I appreciate you, and so thank you. And really, you're going to bring a new dimension to our community. You know, for those that are going to watch you on College Game Day,
yes, sir,
throughout the football season. So
I
keep going, man.
No, I appreciate the
you.
opportunity. This has been a lot of fun. So I have to thank Brian.
Ditto.
This has been great. So thank you. Great questions. Obviously, you're really dialed into this space. So it's been a lot of fun for me too.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Take care.